Chapter 5 starts with classification, which is sorting a collection of objects that involves focusing on an attribute or a characteristic and grouping the objects based on that. So this classification helps students develop organization skills and be able to compare and contrast between things that are different or similar. And just a simple activity you can do is give them a collection of buttons or seeds or any other objects that are easily distinguishable attributes, and ask them to put them in different groups and then have them explain to you why they put it in those certain groups. And then patterns. Showing children how to do patterns helps them recognize, or it's a skill that enhances the development of mathematic concepts. And an activity you can do is give them buttons of 2 colors and then have them create patterns, and then ask them why and describe the pattern that they did. And then this would say wrote. Counting is reciting the number name sequence in proper order, and then rational counting is when students are able to recite the number word sequence, make one-to-one correspondence between the items being counted and saying the number, and realize that the last number they say represents the total number of objects in that set. Then describe how students progress in their counting abilities. So they first start by being able to count all and count on, and this means that they can count the number of objects and get a total number. And then if they are given more objects, then they can start with that total number and then count on from that number to get a new total. And then they move on to counting back or counting backwards. And then a way to teach them this is asking, like for example, what number is 1 less than 8? And then ask the child to count backwards from 9 to 0, thinking of 1 less than the last number they just named. And then you can start doing the skip counting, which refers to counting by multiples of certain numbers, such as 5, so you got 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on. And this lays the foundation for understanding multiplication. What are the various modes of representing numbers? Some various ways of representing numbers are concrete models, pictorial and graphic representation of numbers, symbolic representations, and writing numerals. And it's important because students need to internalize quantity of numbers instead of just like looking at the number and looking at that as quantity, they look at objects and determine the quality or the quantity. Number sense is having a well understood number meaning and having developed multiple relationships among numbers. They can't be taught directly, and students must construct these understandings through their own mental activity. And so a tip, they said they need to be engaged in number exploration so that number relationships can be discovered. So you can do this as a teacher by talking about number relationships or asking them to talk about it, or even have them write about it. 10 frames. They help students understand the relationships between 5 and 10, and I added some pictures here of what they look like. They can use buttons, chips, or stick-on dots, and you need to make sure to discuss the relationships with students, or what students observe in a 10 frame. How should you teach about estimation? Use the word about how many apples are in the box would be an example. Make sure to tell them to have good estimates and show them what that looks like. For primary grades, start out with small quantities and then get bigger. Some examples, ask them or show them a large picture with 15 to 20 objects and have them estimate the quantity of the objects, and then move on to ask them how many jelly beans are in the jar. Alright, now chapter 6. What are the stages of place value development? Number 1, students associate two-digit numbers with the quantity they represent. 2, they identify the positional names but do not know what each digit represents. 3, they identify the base value of digits in a numeral. 4 is the transitional stage. They progress from unreliable performance on tasks to the point at which they know that the tens digit represents the quantity of 10 units. They can coordinate the party-whole relationships within two-digit numbers. And then 5, they understand the structure of our numeral system. They know that digits in a two-digit numeral represent our partition of the whole quantity into tens and ones, and that the number represented is the sum of the parts. Why are grouping activities important? Grouping activities are the foundation for developing place value concepts. What are some materials you can use? There are proportional materials, and those are usually used first for the younger students. Represented piece for 10 is actually 10 times larger than the piece that represents 1. So some examples are pre-bundled sticks that are in singles, groups of 10s and groups of 100, base 10 blocks, and then meter, decimeter, and centimeter sticks you can use. And then there are non-proportional materials, which are the same object that is sometimes used to represent ones, tens, and hundreds. So money, chip trading materials, place value mat, things like that. One way you can assess students' knowledge of place value, you can give a child a unifix cube, include some singles and some stacked together, and then ask the child to show you 24, and then notice if they use like 2 10 sticks and then 4 ones, or if they count out 24 singles. And then if they do that, then they need more work and with place value. What can you use a hundreds chart for? They help children understand place value and patterns, and here's what a hundreds chart would look like, an example of one. So an example activity you can do, have them put a marker on 37 and then tell them to put on one that is 10 more, which would be 47, and then one that is 10 less than 37, which would be 27, and ask them what kind of patterns do they notice about these numbers. The difference between rounding and estimating. Rounding is when rounding a number to a specified place value, locate the place value and examine the digit to its immediate right. So you use this to estimate totals or products. An example they put is used when asking about the population of the U.S. And then estimation, used when students have a good number sense to provide a sensible estimate of the group size. So an example, they would estimate how many people are in the building or how many people are at the baseball game. And that is chapter 5 and 6.